Welcome to the second part of the video. Enjoy! Walt lacked confidence in his ability to compete with the Hollywood big shots, but he persisted in applying for studio jobs and tried his hand at acting. His uncle Robert grew frustrated with Walt's lack of employment and prospects, but Walt believed that he could only break into the movie business again by creating fairy tale cartoons. He set up a makeshift studio in his uncle's garage and pitched his ideas to film distributors, eventually convincing Margaret Winkler, a New York distributor, to work with him on a series of Alice's Wonderland comedies. After the success of Alice's Wonderland, Walt convinced Roy and Ub to start a new business with him, which led to the creation of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Trolley Troubles, the first short film in the series, was an instant hit, catching the attention of top animators in New York. Walt believed that Charles Mintz, Margaret's husband and a Universal Pictures executive, would renew his contract to expand the Oswald series, but Charles had other plans. He offered Walt a deal that was significantly less than what he had been paying before, with the threat of taking Walt's team if he refused. Walt refused Charles's offer, vowing to own every character he created. He warned Charles to protect himself and his company, as Walt's employees could easily do to Charles what they had done to him. Walt sent a letter to Roy, encouraging him to stay strong and promising that they would have the last laugh. Upon returning to his studio, Walt immediately began creating a new character, eventually settling on a mouse with a round belly and skinny arms wearing 2 button shorts. Despite Walt's success with Oswald, he encountered difficulty in finding a distributor for his first animated short film, Steamboat Willie, which featured Mickey Mouse. A veteran of the show business industry, Harry Reichenbach, explained to Walt why distributors were turning him down, stating that they do not recognize what is good until the public tells them. Harry suggested that Walt play Steamboat Willie in a Broadway theater, despite Walt's fears that it would complicate a future release through a distributor. However, Harry convinced him that it would do the opposite. Several months later, Steamboat Willie premiered at the Colony Theater, making history as the first animated cartoon with sound, and received glowing reviews from the New York Times and Variety. As Harry predicted, several distributors made offers to release the film, but all of them insisted on owning the rights to Mickey Mouse. Walt shared his frustrations with Pat Powers, the founder of Universal Pictures and the owner of the sound system used for Steamboat Willie, who sympathized with Walt and offered to release his film under his company, as long as he continued to use his sound system. Walt quickly agreed to Pat's offer, as it was fairer than what other distributors were proposing, and Pat was willing to advance the money Walt needed to make more cartoons. After Walt signed a deal with Pat, Mickey Mouse became a sensation across the U.S. Although Walt expected to receive plenty of checks from Pat, none came in. Pat kept all the profit he made off Mickey Mouse and owed Walt hundreds of thousands of dollars. Walt decided not to pursue legal action because of Pat's influence in Hollywood and ended his contract instead. Pat was bitter about losing Walt's business and threatened to destroy any company that signed a deal with him. MGM gave in to Pat's threats and ended talks of a potential deal. However, Columbia Pictures was not afraid and set up a legal fund to combat his threats. With Columbia Pictures backing, Walt pushed himself and his animators to produce higher quality animations, even if it meant falling deeper into debt. The stress eventually led to Walt experiencing a nervous breakdown, and he took a vacation with his wife, Lily, to France. Upon returning to his studio, Walt found it increasingly challenging to meet payroll. He asked Columbia Pictures for an advance for each cartoon produced, but they declined. Walt shared his frustrations with Saul Lesser, a veteran producer, who mentioned them to his friend, Joseph Schenck, the president of United Artists. Joseph sympathized with Walt and reached out to him to become his new distributor. Walt was thrilled because United Artists was co-founded by his biggest idol, Charlie Chaplin. Encouraged by the prospect of creating more excitement, Walt was determined to take his animations to the next level by incorporating color into his productions. However, Roy, his brother, was apprehensive about the added expense and tried to dissuade him from pursuing this direction. Despite Roy's concerns, Walt remained convinced that the investment in color would eventually pay off in the form of longer playdates and bigger rentals. As he embarked on his first feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Walt was met with skepticism from his employees and industry colleagues, who dubbed it Disney's folly. Seeking advice from a publicist, he was advised to keep the public guessing and build up the suspense. Despite the doubts surrounding the project, Snow White became a critical and commercial success, grossing over $8 million in its first year. This newfound success allowed Walt to pay off his debts and purchase a new studio and home for his parents. However, tragedy struck when Flora, Walt's mother, passed away from a furnace leak in their new home. Business setbacks continued during the Second World War, and Walt struggled to keep the company afloat, with films like Pinocchio and Fantasia leading to financial losses. Walt had to scale down his productions and take the company public to stay afloat. While the IPO was successful, it led to a studio strike, as employees remained bitter about layoffs, wage cuts, and denied bonuses. Walt's determination remained undeterred, and he continued to plan more feature films and a new Hollywood attraction, recognizing the need to provide visitors with something to see beyond just glamour and movie stars. Walt Disney was determined to create an amusement park after seeing the poor state of existing parks during visits with his daughters. Roy Disney was hesitant, reminding Walt that their company was already in debt. Despite this, Walt borrowed against his life insurance and spent several years researching attractions in Europe and America. He finally found his inspiration at the Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, which included a mix of rides, restaurants, gardens, and fireworks. Walt decided to launch a weekly TV show to finance the park's construction, but the board was skeptical. Walt argued that they were in the entertainment business, and amusement parks fell into that category. The board eventually gave Walt their approval after he emotionally pleaded his case. Walt signed a deal with ABC for a TV series called Disneyland, which would showcase feature films, short films, and documentaries in exchange for investment in the park and guaranteed loans. Despite the backlash, Walt was determined to move forward with his plans to launch a weekly TV show. The theater owners were threatened by the new medium and feared it would negatively impact their business. However, Walt believed TV would encourage a broader audience to watch movies in theaters and proceeded with his plans. 2 years later, Disneyland finally opened in Anaheim, California, but it wasn't without its challenges. The media dubbed the park's opening day as a failure due to counterfeit tickets, broken rides, empty restaurants, and a gas leak in one area. But Walt refused to be defeated and made operational changes to turn things around. He also invited the press to return and witness the park's success. Within a year, over 3 million people visited Disneyland, and the ABC series became the highest-rated TV show. Walt achieved financial stability after 3 decades in Hollywood. In an interview, he shared the 4 C's of success: curiosity, confidence, courage, and constancy, with confidence being the most significant. Today, Disneyland is referred to as the happiest place on Earth, and the Walt Disney Company is worth an estimated $130 billion. This is the story of how a high school dropout, who was once homeless, became an American icon by pursuing his passion. For more inspiring stories and advice from today's most successful leaders, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.